Okay, today we're going to be talking about Florida living and Gulf Coast life, and I've got a guest to introduce you to in just a moment. But first, once again, my name is Craig Cunha. I'm a realtor here in Southwest Florida. So if you're looking for a channel that'll tell you a little bit more about what it's like to live, play, eat, sleep, and buy real estate on the Gulf Coast, then this is the channel for you. Go ahead and subscribe and leave a comment down below, hit the bell, make sure you're notified every time. And if you've got a question that you need an answer to, you have to call, text, or email because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast. Okay, now that we got the introduction over, I'm going to introduce a new counterpart that is up in the Tampa area. So as you know, this channel, we talk a lot about Florida as a whole. And my specialization is Southwest Florida. So I'm calling in Emily here to tell you a little bit about her channel and give you access to her. So if you're considering that area, she would be the person that probably be a better guide to get you through the process. So go ahead, Emily, tell them a little bit about your channel.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Emily Kearns and I'm at Tampa Living with M on YouTube. And again, I focus on all things Tampa, St. Pete and the surrounding areas, especially the beaches. So I've got your back when it comes to Central Florida.
All right, very good. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do today to kind of make this as informative as possible, as you know, I try to give little caveats here and there. We're going to discuss some of the pros and cons of each of our areas and how that contrasts to the other city. Yeah. So one of the things that I know that I really like about Southwest Florida in comparison is that our cost of living is generally lower. And you'll find that with smaller cities, that's going to be the case. And there's a con that's going to go with that we'll talk about in a minute. But Emily, what do you say about the cost of living? What's that look like in your area? Maybe median home prices? Because right now I think we hit 350,000 now, and it's gone up every single month this year. So we're at 350,000 for median home prices. What are you seeing there?
We're seeing very much the same. And I was actually doing a little research on comparing Fort Myers cost of living to Tampa, and we're still a little bit higher than you. We're about 4% higher, and even the stats are saying for home prices, we're about 5% higher, but we're still capping out right there at that 350. But again, probably like your area, it depends on if you're near the water or if you're a little bit more inland. It definitely depends on the neighborhood. Tampa is a little bit more spread out than you guys. So we have these pocket neighborhoods, and some are obviously going to be more expensive than others. But also, you're going to find that you're going to have a house that's $350 on the corner, and then just a couple of houses down, you're going to have a renovated house for $1 million. So it's still all over the map.
Okay, so you see extreme jumps on the same street, which I don't think we're not affected quite the same way. But let's talk about the con that goes right along with that. Our cost of living may be better, but our incomes are lower. And it just comes by way of being in a city with really no manufacturing. We're completely hospitality. I'm sure you are to a degree, but talk a little bit about maybe what the incomes are there, because our incomes, I mean, if you're making 50,000 right now in our area, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, you need to make at least 60,000 from what the research shows. You know, we are definitely higher when it comes to paying wages and that sort of thing. And we have a little bit more diversity when it comes to jobs. But when I really dove a little bit deeper into it, and some of my friends are talking, it's really the healthcare industry, IT, as well as the financial sectors that are really booming. I mean, you definitely have hospitality here as well. Obviously, along the beaches, we all have those beach bars and hotels and, you know, that sort of thing. That's our bread and butter, right? Yeah. But I still think that as far as wages, we're still paying a little bit more because, again, you're going to get that more of that city vibe, but we're still not as diverse as some of the larger cities, but we're getting there.
All right, very good. So there's a little insight as far as that part of it. We're not going to jump too much into that because there's other topics to cover. And the one that I really think stands out, and Emily, I think that you'll feel this in the coming months, but weather-wise, we're all kind of affected the same by storms. Very difficult for hurricanes to turn into us because it's going against its natural flow. So we're blessed in that regard. But with weather, we're about 5 to 7 degrees warmer here in Southwest Florida in the wintertime. All summer long, it really doesn't matter where you are in Florida, you're going to be hot and sweaty. But in those cooler months, if somebody wants true subtropical, they've got to head south. Is that pretty accurate?
I think so. I mean, we're really, I think you guys get a little bit more rain than us, and you probably get a little bit more sunshine than us. But I think you guys probably get more of a coastal breeze than we do typically. So we can be super oppressive when it comes to like July, August for sure. And a lot of people end up heading towards the East Coast where you're going to get a little bit more of that cooler breeze. But all in all, I really think Tampa can sometimes get a little log jammed in that like a heat box. But you can also go to St. Pete, where St. Pete's always got that coastal breeze. So depending on your level of heat that you can stand, yeah, you're gonna get Tampa notoriously gets super, super hot in the summertime. But as we're about to talk about, how we have extremes. So right now we're heading into the fall and it's the most perfect weather that we could
Agreed.
imagine, right?
100%. And one other thing that you mentioned, talk about St. Pete, is keep in mind, folks, that Emily's about an hour and a half to 2 hours away from where I am. And we're able to cover that market in between. We can share in that. So she can go down into the Brandon and Bradenton areas, and I can come up into the Port Charlotte and Englewood areas. Sarasota is kind of like a midpoint between us and probably one of the largest growing areas. But with that aside, check in with us if you're looking in those areas too, because we can assist. And if we can't do it directly, we have other business partners in those areas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've been selling property in Siesta Key, which is the island right off of Sarasota. I've sold some homes in Ruskin, Apollo Beach. So we do kind of cover the map. And I've gone all the way up as far as Hudson, which is on the northwest side of the coast of Tampa. So we run the gamut. As long as you have a car and fuel, you can go anywhere. I mean, we definitely have to create those dividing lines, right? So if I have a client that's really looking at Fort Myers, I'm not going to waste my time and try to do that commute. Might as well hand them over to you, Craig, and they can get very well treated, and I know that they're going to be good to go.
All right, perfect. And while we're on that note, business partners, we're partners because we're with EXP. We do work together. EXP is one of the largest growing cloud-based brokerages in the world. So that's where we're with. So identify with us with EXP, and anybody else that's within our networks, we can help hook you up, because again, we're growing so large now. But that as an aside, there really isn't a negative to the weather part outside of that heat and humidity, which we're going to get no matter where you're going. So we won't even touch the con on that. Right. Just take the pro and run with it.
Well, I do have one con.
All right,
I don't know if you know this way, but in the summertime, it just rains every day, which can cause delays. It can cause accidents, that sort of thing. That is one con, I think, about the weather.
All right. Well, since you said accidents, let's talk about insurances, because one of the things that we have to cover ourselves against our property. And when you look at hazard insurances, there's some uniqueness between the two areas. And there's one topic that I keep getting asked about that I really have zero knowledge on, because we don't have it happen here. When you think of Florida, you think of hurricanes, obviously. We can get tornadoes pop up and water spouts. But the one thing that it's very specific to certain sections of Florida is sinkholes. And I know that it may not even affect you a lot, but there's a lot of questions about it. Since I don't ever see it here, what can you share about sinkholes and how it affects insurances?
Yes, I did run into this with one buyer up in that Hudson area, and I hadn't seen a lot of situations with regards to sinkholes. Obviously, there have been sinkhole remediations, and so when you're looking at a home, you want your agent to look at those seller disclosures, because they do have to disclose that. So I did come across that with one of the homes that my buyer was interested in. Unfortunately, he was a VA loan, so they were never going to approve that, even with the remediation, because it can come back. So, it's in spots. We definitely have the resources. We have sinkhole maps that can tell you areas. I did look a little bit. It's a little bit more in the North Tampa area, not so much, interestingly enough, not so much by the water, but every now and then you get that. Again, I'm not a sinkhole expert, but I do know that it is something that, most sellers have to disclose. Actually, all sellers should disclose, and then you can do your research from there. But, we have resources to help you if you come into that kind of situation.
All right, fair enough. And since we're both in Florida, the one thing that people should know is once you get yourself under contract, your very first due diligence thing should be calling an insurance agent and getting a quote, because our insurances have changed. while I haven't seen a major change in my insurance, I can't say that for all properties. So make sure that's one of the first things you do. Get the quote, know what the monthly payments are. And Emily, I'm pretty sure you're experiencing the same thing there.
Yes, and I was going to ask you if you heard about the risk rating system changing for flood insurance in particular. FEMA just rolled that out as of October. So I was doing a video talking about how they're going to be changing the rating system. It used to be based on flood zones. I'm sure you had that as well. Now it's going to be based on, structural foundation, elevation, and what it would cost to repair the home if there was a storm. So it's going to be more on a proper individual property basis now, where before it was like if you were in flood zone X, you were basically fine and your rates weren't very high, but now that could change. So
okay, well, that's certainly good to know. And properties are always going to be case by case. So that's why it's up to us as your advocate and yourselves to do your due diligence during that what they call inspection period. It's really a due diligence period to handle all these issues. So make sure that's one at the top of the list.
Yes.
And this one didn't really have a pro and con because insurance is insurance. Nobody likes it, but we like it when we have to use it because it covers us. But for the most part, it's a negative. It's more money out of your pocket, but that's what it is. So
we're still below the national average as far as property insurance anyway. So you're still going to probably be able to afford. It's affordable,
Oh, yeah, affordability is not a problem. But while we're still on what insurance has to do with things, let's talk about how congested areas can be. Because once again, I'm in a smaller area. We have a population in Cape Coral that's hitting on 200,000 now. I think Fort Myers is still under 100,000 as a city. But when we combine our total, let's put us about 300, maybe 350,000 people in our area. You're significantly larger. So how does the traffic and the congestion, if accidents happen, how, I guess, annoying or how much of a issue is this for your area?
Huge issue. It's a major annoyance. I mean, we have about 10,000 people moving here a day. So our infrastructure cannot even handle it. Yeah. And not to mention, I talk about this on a couple of my other videos, because I've lived in some major cities, and coming back home to Tampa, I was like, do people not know how to drive here? The worst drivers in any big city I've ever been in, accidents all over the place, and people are uninsured. So talk about insurance. Automobile insurance is astronomical. I'm sure you have that down there as well. I don't know what it is about Florida, but yes. So we end up having weather, has a factor to do with our traffic. People coming down here from cities where they didn't have to drive before, like a New York or a Chicago. Now they have to drive everywhere. So yes, it is a big pain. It's something that I end up, complaining about every day that I'm on the road.
So you basically have to account a lot of extra time whenever you're getting to appointments and things like that, just in case. And obviously, because you're spread out so much further, I mean, it can take you quite a bit of your day to get from one side to the other if you need to.
Yeah, like even tonight, I have to go to St. Pete for an event, and I have to plan ahead because it starts at 6. And that's rush hour traffic if I'm going to get in, and I've got to go across the major bridge, the Howard Franklin, which is 275. And that's everybody comes in and out of Tampa, St. Pete that way, if they're working in either downtown St. Pete, live in Tampa, or vice versa. So you have to take that into consideration. And there's not a lot of options to get in and out of the St. Pete area.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because, our area, obviously, since we don't, I notice when I go up there, especially like 275, some of the larger interstates, I mean, when you're on it, you're on it. And there's really not a lot of ways unless you know the back neighborhoods to cut through. And I know down here for us, we have a certain challenge where there's bridges that connect Cape Coral and Fort Myers. And if you don't have access to one of those 3 bridges, you're not getting there, or you need a boat. Wow. There is no option. Now, in your situation, we have tolls down here, and it's always been an issue for us. A lot of people complain about that. It's relatively low, and we have transponders that make it less expensive. Do you have tolls in your area, and is it all over, or is it just certain parts?
It's certain parts. We have on the Veterans Expressway, which it runs north and south. As you're leaving, I would say the Carrollwood area, which is like mid Tampa area, heading north, you're gonna hit more tolls, especially as you go up into on the way to Ocala, let's just say, or Orlando. You're gonna be hit with more tolls. I can't recall if there's a lot of tolls going east and west. I don't think so. It's mainly, there's some tolls heading to Brandon and Riverview, but not as many as you guys have, for sure.
Okay. And again, ours are just, I want to say that we have three main ones, the two bridges going into Cape Coral and then the one going to Sanibel. Those are the main ones that we have to deal with. But, again, it's an extra expense. If you don't account for it, it's there.
Especially if you're commuting. I mean, that's the thing, right? It can add up.
Absolutely. So outside of that, let's look at waterfront properties. Now, I know you have waterfront and I have waterfront and everywhere in between has waterfront.
Right.
And Cape Coral's been touted as the waterfront capital of the world, waterfront wonderland. I mean, we literally have 400 miles of canals. So there really is nowhere else that allows us to have that. So I'm going to say that we probably have the most affordable waterfront housing, only because the fact of the sheer number of properties. So if you look at Gulf access properties, what is, say, a average price of maybe a 16 to 1800 square foot home with Gulf access in your area?
Well, again, prices are all over the place. So I sold a condo that was on the bay side in Clearwater. So again, Clearwater, you go down our bridge and you can have the bay side, which is a big canal, or you can have the Gulf side. The Gulf side, at this time they were selling for like $1 million, $1.5 million for a Gulf view. For his condo, that was like a 3-bedroom condo in a very nice, building for 900. So not a big difference, but there are some bungalows. So some of those old beachy bungalows are still around, especially in the canal communities. I don't think they're going for anything lower than $500,000, to be honest with you. Renovated, they're obviously going to go $1 million and up. Now, what's interesting is I don't necessarily live at the beach, but I live on a canal. So I'm right as you. So the Tampa airport goes along, north and south, and then south of that is Hillsborough Avenue along the water. And I'm right there on the water as you're heading towards Palm Harbor. And there's some canal communities right there off of the Courtney Campbell. And those can vary as well. But I'm going to tell you, I did not pay $500,000 for my condo. Right. And I've still got a canal with bay access. Okay. But across my canal are $1 million homes.
All right, so here's what's interesting. In our area, I can still get a Gulf access condo in the 200s.
Wow.
So yes, and they could range between 800 and 1200 square feet. They are generally going to be older. So as you get newer and as you get into more desirable areas, it will go up. Our single family homes, we're starting now in the 600s. Because if you're in the 5s, I have a lot of people call, hey, I want a Gulf access property. I want to start in the 400,000 range. I quickly say that's not happening. We don't have that anymore. So 600s is kind of our new number. But again, progressing every single month, going up and up. So you have to start looking at other options. Now, with other options, I know you guys also have dry storage, marinas. Would you say you have a lot of boat ramps too that people could access? And how is storage of boats on the properties there? Because we can actually roll them up in our backyard. What's that look like for you?
Well, it's again, are you in a deed restricted area? Can you actually park it in your driveway? That's one thing. Not all, it's not one rule. It just depends on the community. Again, my canal, we can park our boats. I've got a slip outside. It's fresh water, so we can sit in the water. But as you go on the other side of the sling that goes into the bay, those homes back there have their own docks with the raised, what do you call that? The raised, I'm talking about, we raise them up out of the.
Oh, the lift. It's just
the lift.
Yeah.
So they have their own lift
Sure.
to keep them out of that salt water. Most people will have a dock with their own lift on their property, especially if they're on the saltwater side versus the brackish side, which is again that half bay, half freshwater lake.
Right.
And as far as dry dock, I know in Dunedin, there is a dry dock marina. in Ozona, which is just south of that. There's tends to be more dry docks on that side. I'm not sure how far north, and I know we have them along the beaches for sure.
Okay.
We have some dry docks, but again, most places, most homes and condos even now have their own docks with their own lifts. A lot of times they come with the property, especially in a
Perfect.
condo.
Yeah, we have a lot of that too. So that's certainly understandable.
Kind of standard, I think. Yeah.
I'm going to hit, this is kind of a bonus pro for me, is that we happen to have what's called the Key West Cat. And that is a catamaran that runs people down to Key West for an afternoon, for a weekend. And it's relatively inexpensive. It's under $200 a person to take this thing down there. It leaves in the morning, comes back every evening. So if you're going to stay for a couple days, you go down in the morning, just hold on to your return ticket, go down and party down there for a little while, enjoy what's down there, and then come back. Now, I know you don't have that.
Because we're not close to Key West like you are.
But, well, and the one thing I'm going to say in reverse of that, I'm going to give this back to you because it's a con for us, is you have a port that has cruise ships that leave out of it. We don't have that.
Yeah.
So what's that look like for you guys with these cruise ships? I mean, are they in and out a lot? And I know they're just getting started again, but you know.
We don't have a ton of the cruise ships because, again, remember, they have to be able to go under the Skyway. Yep. And that limits. So I was just talking to somebody last night who's in the logistics business, and those cargo ships, you know, they can't actually get into our port if they're a certain size. They actually have to dredge because you have to get through the Sunshine Skyway. And so they made the Skyway, as you know, big enough for cruise ships, but not all cruise ships come through. So we usually have like a Norwegian, you know, periodically. So it's not a ton. It's not a churning like you would have over at like Cape Canaveral. But we do have some cargo ships, smaller cargo ships. And it can be a little bit of an eyesore on I think it's on the east side of Davis Island.
Okay.
That's where the port is. But then just north of that is an area called Channel Side that they've just started to renovate. And that's where like the eat, work, play.
Oh yeah.
Concept
That's a great, I've been there. Absolutely awesome. If you haven't been there, you've got to experience it.
Food trucks, music, movies on the lawn. It's its own little world. Oh, yeah. It is quite fun. And they do have the Starlight Cruises, which is just like a dinner boat that you can take. But we also have the pirate taxi. So that also connects to the Hillsborough River, right? That opens up to the bay. So we have the water taxi that you could take at the very top of the Hillsborough River and take it all the way down, and you can restaurant hop and get on and off for about $40 round trip. And it'll take you to all the restaurants all the way down to Channel Side. So.
Okay. So while you're talking about that, that's one of my that's probably my top con for this area is the activities and the culture that you can get in a massive city like you're in. And I even think about things like Gasparilla and how they do that whole boat thing every year. And we have small segmented things that are done. We do have events, especially as the season starts rolling in with all of our snowbirds coming in, but obviously nothing like the capacity that you guys have for that kind of thing, including the arts and any museums and things. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, because I don't have a whole lot to say.
Yeah. I grew up in Tampa and I moved away, and then I came back and I was worried I'd be bored. And my adult friends were like, no, it's changed a lot. And it really has. I mean, there's a lot of activity along the Hillsborough River. There's armature works, there's waterworks, there's the Straz. And as you kind of go up the river, there's Curtis Hickson, where we always have festivals. In the wintertime, they turn it into like a winter wonderland with ice skating. Nice. And there's bars along it. It's amazing. And you can keep going down the river to the bay and down to Harbor Island and all that area. And then you go into Channel Side, and that's where, again, all the big boats are coming in and out. And you can actually take now, it's called the Crosstown Ferry. They've reopened it from Tampa to St. Pete. So you can take a day, if you don't want to drive the bridge or something and just want to take your bike, you can load up on the Crosstown Ferry for, I think it's $20 round trip, and it drops you right at the pier in St. Pete. Get off with your bike, hang out for the day, get back on before the end of the night. It's really cool. So ton of opportunities to hop on and off boats, water taxis, that sort of thing. Even our downtown has gotten really cool. We have some really cool restaurants.
Right.
I think Tampa's restaurants have really, really grown and gotten way more eclectic. It used to be just a lot of Cuban and Puerto Rican food and that kind of, you know, battle of the Italians and the Cubans and the Puerto Ricans. Now it's robust with lots of, you know, different kinds of infusions and things. And
All right,
I mean,
so hey,
I stand up about music and art, and I mean, I could go on and on and on.
Yeah, well, let's not do that because I'm going to die. I got to redirect this because the one thing that we enjoy about being where I am here in Southwest Florida is that I don't have to live in that craziness and deal with all that traffic.
That's
but
true.
You're an hour and a half to 2 hours away, so I can come there any weekend I want, experience that, and have it as my treat for the month or the week or whatever it is, and then go back to my peace and serenity in Southwest Florida. So you may have it there at your fingertips every day, but to say that it's not accessible to most of the state, I mean, it is. And that's one of the benefits of Southwest Florida is that we have Tampa to the north, then we have Miami to the east, and even a little further is, oh, there goes my table, up to Orlando. Orlando is only 2.5 to 3 hours away for all the Disney parks. So, and you are very close to that as well. So I'm sure that's an added bonus for the folks there in Tampa. They just take that short trek across to Orlando.
It is. I mean, you can get to everything. It is at your fingertips. But again, I'll go back to traffic. So even or getting to Orlando from Tampa, people are like, oh, that's not so far away. But you and I both know, and people need to understand what the hell it is I-4 is to sit on.
It's hell. Like you said,
it is
find a back road, because we at one time were on motorcycles and started looking for which back roads can connect. And we found some really nice riding roads. But
that's good.
I mean, obviously it took so much longer to get there, but staying on I-4, I mean, you could literally just be parked for a while in some of those
hours. Like literally the only time of day that you could actually get on I-4 would be at the crack of dawn, like 3 a.m. I mean, don't even think about getting on it during rush hour. And then the weekends, because people are going to Disney back and forth. That's everybody. A lot of people in Tampa, they have their, you know, annual passes and they take their kids every weekend. So, you know, yes, we have a lot of things to do, but you do have to factor in, we've got a ton of people. We have a ton of vacationers and we have a ton of snowbirds because we are so spread out. We can accommodate more than probably you guys can, but that just log jams our traffic.
Yeah. And again, these are the differences and challenges. And one of the last things that I know, and it kind of goes into your entertainment part, something that we really have no reference to down here. We have minor league teams for everything. And obviously spring training and stuff. And you have that too. But you have, I mean, I'm literally coming up to one of your NFL games here in the next couple of weeks. So pro sports, that is one thing. Obviously, if anybody is a fan of pro sports, you guys have access to that. It's right there in your backyard between the baseball, the football. You have what other?
And the hockey. Don't forget our hockey team.
Well. Okay, I wasn't sure where they were located. I knew they were in somewhere here in Florida. One time, weren't they in Miami? Maybe, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, they're downtown. So the Amalie Arena is right off of, again, by the river and where the bay meet. Down by the Tampa Convention Center. So at the very bottom of downtown Tampa is the Amalie. And again, walkable. So there's an outdoor sail pavilion bar that everybody hangs out, congregates right before the game, and then they go in there. And then, of course, not maybe 10 minutes up the road off Dale Mabry, we've got Raymond James, and then we've got Steinbrenner Field right across from it. And then we've got the Rays Stadium. People don't realize the Rays Stadium is actually in St. Pete. So, I mean, we're dominating. We're dominating sports right now. I just have to brag.
All right, you can stop bragging. But you know what? Unfortunately, I'm going to admit this. I'm a Steelers fan, but I went out and got a Brady jersey the other day because I'm going to the game, and he is the GOAT.
You got to support.
You got to give him that. And my other half, she's a Bucks fan, so I guess I have to support that. But
I have to say, he's really made me a fan. My whole family's into football. My boyfriend's into football. I could care less. I grew up in Tampa where the Bucks were a joke, and now we've got the GOAT. Are you kidding me? Those games are so exciting. So yeah, I mean, you kind of can't help but get into it.
Well, before you turn everybody off, let's kind of close this out. Anyway, if you guys have questions about anything to do with Southwest Florida, Tampa area, anything in between, anything that we can help you with, even making the transition to Florida as a whole, because the state really isn't that different. If you go central and away from the coast, it changes tremendously. I'm sure you see that up there too, Emily, but
Yep.
for coastal living in Florida, we kind of cover the gamut up and down this Gulf Coast. And if there's anything that you're interested in that we haven't talked about, go ahead and reach out to either of us. Emily, again, what was the channel that you have up there?
It's Tampa Living with M, as in my name, Emily, EM.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and put some of that information up on the screen so people can see that. But
Great.
again, if you have any questions for us, you've got to call, text, or email, because we've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig.
All right. Thank you so much. And I'm gonna cut us out of here.